Happy draft day, everybody, and welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. John Schmeelk, Matt Citak with you, taking your calls at 201-939-4513. Happy draft day, Mr. Citak.
Happy draft day. It's finally here.
Yeah, a lot of work, a lot of names, a lot of podcasts, a lot of shows, and we are finally here coming to you from the Hackensack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. And the Giants selected third overall tonight in the 2025 NFL Draft. We've talked a lot, Matt, about who they might take at pick number 3, depending on who is on the board. If Cam Ward and Travis Hunter are both gone, though, there are still rumblings that teams are trying to trade up to get one of these few blue-chip players in the class, whether it's a Hunter, an Abdul Carter, an Ashton Genty, or maybe there's another player people want, who knows. The Giants could be on the board with the choice of Abdul Carter, a quarterback, or one of the other position players. And if the consensus is to be believed, we don't know what the Giants board looks like, there's a decent shot that Abdul Carter could become a member of the Giants tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, you never know what's going to happen in the draft. You know, we see surprises at the top of the draft, middle, and we see surprises every year, things that we just did not see coming at all. But at this point, I feel like I would be pretty surprised if the pick is not Abdul Carter at 3 for the Giants. Like you said, you know, there are reports that teams are still trying to trade up. And as I've mentioned, you know, yesterday, the last couple weeks, months, if someone in the top 10 comes calling with that absolute godfather author that sets you up with a first round pick in next year's draft, in addition to a day 2 pick or 2, you got to at least consider it. But I do not think that's going to happen. I think the Giants are going to come out of this top 3 with Abdul Carter, and it's going to make their defense that much better, and I cannot wait for it.
Yes, same here. Now let's talk about the pick at 34, which I think has a little bit more intrigue to it, Matt, where they can little bit. They could stick and pick, they could trade back, or they could trade up. And you look at some of the mock drafts that came out over the past day or so, both Daniel Jeremiah's final mock draft, he had the Giants trading all the way up to pick number 18 with the Seahawks to get ahead of the Steelers, but not to pick Shedeur Sanders, but to select Drew Lock. Dane Brugler in his final mock draft.
Jackson Dart.
What did I say?
Drew Lock.
I keep doing that.
You do keep doing that.
Jackson Dart. I don't know why I keep doing that. Jackson Dart. I joked about it yesterday, and I still keep doing it, and I don't know why. And then the Dane Brugler in his final mock had the Giants trading up to pick 24, I believe it was, to also select Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. So there is some rumors that the Giants could be looking to trade into the back of round 1. I don't feel like they would go as high as 18. I think they would wait to see what the Steelers do at 21 and then decide they need to move up, because I feel like a half round, that's going to get very pricey in terms of what you would have to move in a move like that. But who knows, if they really believe in one of these quarterbacks and there's one that they know they really want no matter what, and they want to get in front of the Steelers, I would understand the logic behind that move. But I'm curious to see how they handle that.
Yeah, well, in that Jeremiah mock draft, he did say what the trade package would be. And to move up from 34 to 18, he said it would cost the Giants their second round pick in next year's draft. Which, to be honest, I thought it would be more than that, to move up 16 slots to the middle of the first round. To get just next year's 2, you still keep all of your day 2 picks. I mean, not 34, but you keep your 2 third-round picks. You keep that 105 pick in the 4th round. I thought the trade package would be more than that to move up 16 slots. If that's all it's going to take and the Giants have one of these quarterbacks high on their board, then you got to go for it.
Remember, you say that now, though, when we're sitting here next March and we're looking at those second-round pick, we're going to be like, oh, man, I really wish I had that pick.
Again, you only do that if you have conviction about whether it's Dart or Shedeur, whoever it is, and you're moving up to get ahead of Pittsburgh so they don't potentially snag the guy that you want. But if you have Dart and Shedeur similarly ranked, even if they're not exactly on the same level, if you have them pretty close, then I'm with you. You wait to see what Pittsburgh does. If they take one, then you know, okay, now we got to move up to maybe that 24 with the Vikings, who only have 4 picks. They could be looking to trade down, move up and grab the other guy before someone else like Cleveland or New Orleans can move up and snag that guy. Or who knows? What if Pittsburgh doesn't take either quarterback and the Steelers are off the clock, and both Shedeur and Jackson Dart are both still sitting there as you get into the early 20s? Who knows? Then maybe you only have to trade up a couple of spots to end up getting one of them if that's what you so choose. But the thing to me is the last 24 hours, so many, as you mentioned, so many of the top draft analysts in the industry have been putting out these mock drafts saying the Giants are trading up back into the first round for Jackson Dart. So, like, every single one you look at,
it's almost too much
saying that. And in my eyes, we've been here the last 3+ years with this current regime, with Joe Shane, Brian Daboll. Have you ever heard of a situation with them where they just told the media their plans?
No.
Everyone in the media just knows the Giants' plans. They keep everything so close to the chest. I just don't see how it's possible that they would let everyone and their brother know what they're planning to do tonight. I mean, they could like Jackson Dart, and maybe if he's sitting there when the Giants are on the clock at 34, maybe that's the pick. But in this situation where this week especially is smokescreen season, I just don't see how the Giants would let everyone in the entire NFL know what they want to do to address the most important position on the field. I think there's too much smoke in this situation. I don't buy it. Maybe I'll be wrong. We'll see tonight, but I just don't believe it right now.
I feel like this is a game of telephone where one person out there that works in the NFL has told one person this, and then it's just got passed on again and again. And it's one of those things like one person said it, but everyone picks it up. Because I think when you look at all these draft analysts, just to give you an example, you look at Peter Schrager and Dane Brugler's mock drafts. I believe both of them had Walter Nolan going 11 to the 49ers. Daniel Jeremiah did not have Walter Nolan in his mock draft. That's how different these mock drafts are. And I think some of these guys out there, they're just going to grasp onto anything to give them some level of certainty as to what certain teams are going to do in certain spots, that they kind of grasp onto that. But I'm with you. I talked to, Sal Palantonio from ESPN was here yesterday. He's here again today. You have Judy Batista here from NFL Network today. I talked to both of them, and they're like, yeah, they're both pretty plugged into the league, right? And they're like, we haven't heard anything about what the Giants are going to do. Like, it's very quiet. This regime does not let anything out. So
exactly.
I think beware of the noise late in the year. This is why it's called lying season, right? Where teams or people around the NFL might make up things about other teams about what they're looking to do. So it might help them with their draft positioning.
Yeah, this is
who knows?
The time of year where all of a sudden all of these negative reports come out about the top prospects. Who do you think's putting them out? The teams that are a little bit lower in the top 10 who are praying that one of these studs falls to them. Like, don't buy these reports that come out at the last second saying, Team X is going to do this, or player Y has this issue all of a sudden, when we've gone through the entire pre-draft process and there was not one mention of this potential concern for these stud players. Now,
are you 50-50 that the Giants use pick 34, whether it's in a trade-up or at 34, they pick a quarterback there? Are you 50-50? Are you 60-40 they do, 60-40 they don't? Where are you living right now in your brain in terms of what they might do with that pick?
My gut?
Yeah, your gut.
My gut has me leaning towards no quarterback at 34. I would say maybe like 60-40 towards no quarterback.
I'm on the other side. I think it's 60-40 yes quarterback. But again, if you're 60-40, you would not be surprised if it goes the other way.
I would not be surprised at all if that quarterback is the pick. I'm just leaning very slightly towards no quarterback, but I'm leaning more, that 60-40 is more towards the trading up for one of these quarterbacks. I do think if the Giants are there at 34 and, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, maybe even Shador, who knows? If one of those guys are still on the board.
Hey, and Tony Pauline said he thinks the Giants have a lot of interest in Tyler Shook last night on our WFAN show.
Yeah, I mean, not this week, but like just last week, there were plenty of mock drafts projecting the Giants to take Tyler Shook, whether it be at 34, 65, or moving up from 65, 10, 15 slots to then take Tyler Shook. I think that is more likely. It's the situation that I'm leaning more towards, I don't see happening slightly, is the trading up back into the first round for a quarterback.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, none of the quarterbacks would shock me either.
Same.
None of them would be like, wow, they picked that guy? Maybe if it ends up being like Riley Leonard or something like that, I'd be shocked. But of that group of four you just mentioned, Sanders, Dart, Shook, Milroe, none of those four would surprise me.
No, it would not surprise me at all.
It's somewhere around 34. Okay, so we're going to do two more things before we get to your calls. We want to give you guys a chance to give your take on the draft one more time. We're going to do the fastest mock draft of all time. Citak was upset because he did not like some of his picks from last Friday. So he walked up to me yesterday. He said, John, we we really need to do the mock draft the week of the draft because I did not like some of my picks from last Friday. Things have changed. I go, yes, you know what? We usually actually do an extra BBK mock draft the week of the draft. So I figured I'd give him the opportunity.
I was mainly talking because I had the Saints pick, and I picked Shador because that was right after the Derek Carr news came out where everyone was pointing towards the Saints for Shador. And now, obviously, that seems to have changed, and so that was the one I really wanted.
Well, we are going to give Citak a chance to get some restitution on that. So
thank you.
We're going to do the quickest mock draft of all time. I'm going to hope to get this done in 8 minutes or less.
Okay.
You guys know about all these players, what we think about them, so we're just going to go rapid fire. I'm going to pick first. We're going to go every other pick. All right, here we go. Cam Ward, Tennessee Titans, first overall.
Travis Hunter, Cleveland Browns, second overall.
All right, we've talked about it a million times. Abdul Carter to the Giants at pick number 3.
New England Patriots, number 4. Will Campbell, tackle out of LSU.
Now, this is where...
Pearson likes that pick.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. I'm going to go Ashton Genty to the Jaguars at number 5. Word has it, I think they're the team trying to trade up to get Travis Hunter. I think they want a big offensive playmaker. So I think if they can't get Hunter, they go with the next best playmaker. And I think Genty would be picked ahead of both McMillan and Golden, though I think McMillan is a possibility here. I'm going to go Genty.
Yeah, I mean, the drum is definitely beating towards the Jaguars now taking Genty at 5.
Yes.
Which kind of seems crazy when you think about it. Even when we did our mock a week ago,
I know.
Lance called me out for picking him 6 to the Raiders, saying that was way too high, which if Genty somehow does not end up with Jacksonville, I do think he would end up with the Raiders. But
this is tough, by the way.
In this
6
exercise,
is hard.
With Genty now off the board, I'm going to go with Kelvin Banks from Texas.
See, I was going back between... I'm going to have my little mock that I tweet out at the end of the draft to see how dumb I was. I was going back and forth between Banks and Membo. I ended up going with Membo because they have Colton Miller out there at left tackle already, and Banks is played on the left side, and Membo's a right tackle.
That's fair.
But
it wouldn't surprise me if it's Membo.
No, but Banks has been connected to the Raiders a lot, which is why I was going back and forth on it.
I do think it would be one of those 2 tackles, though.
This was a tough one for me, too, because I thought about offensive line for Jets, and I was thinking about Membo here. In my fake mock, I'm going to have Tyler Warren go here, but since Membo was still on the board, because I had Membo going to the Raiders, I'm going to go Armand Membo to the Jets.
I think that's a good pick in that situation. Carolina at number 8, I think they're going to go Jalen Walker.
Ooh, I thought you were going to go Mason Graham here.
It's shocking that Mason Graham is still available, but they seem to, really need edge help more so than on the interior. So I'm going to go with Jalen Walker.
And this is, I wanted to give Mason Graham then to the Saints. Here's the problem. Brian Brzee and him are almost identical in terms of size and play style. I think they're both very similar. So I'm going to give the Saints Michael Williams. They like big, long, powerful edges. So I'm going to give Michael Williams to the Saints at number 9.
See, this is a situation I did not prepare for the Bears at 10, because I think they would take Tyler Warren if Tyler Warren was available. But with Mason Graham still being there, I don't see how they could pass up on that situation.
And they need defensive tackle help, too.
They do. And again, I don't think Mason Graham is going to fall this far, but in this situation, I got to go Mason Graham.
Remember, I mentioned people are a little worried about his measurables. People have told me they would not be shocked if he drops into the 10 to 12 area. So
I'm not worried about those. I would take him there in a heartbeat.
He is my 5th or 6th ranked player, so I'm with you. He's a really good player. But I've heard that this could be a situation where he drops a little bit. All right, San Francisco 49ers. They need pass rush. They need help on the defensive line to get back to their tough upfront ways. And they really have not replaced DeForest Buckner and stuff like those big guys on the defensive tackle spot. So I'm going to give them Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss.
It's a good pick. I feel like for the Cowboys at 12, this is sort of the dream situation for them. They have their
not
choice.
For Giants fans.
Not for Giants fans, but for the Cowboys and their fans, they have the choice of any wide receiver in this draft that they want. I'm going to go with Tet McMillan from Arizona.
Yes.
A nice compliment to CeeDee Lamb on the outside.
So my understanding, by the way, I've heard the last day or so, he does not like Tet McMillan. He prefers T-Mac.
T-Mac.
Yes.
We already have a T-Mac.
He doesn't like Tet, though.
Not we, but,
I know.
There's one T-Mac that I think of. Thomas
apparently
McGrady.
he was not aware. Someone asked him this in an interview. He was not aware of Tracy McGrady.
I was saying Thomas McGahee.
Oh, you think about Thomas McGahee? I was thinking of Tracy McGrady.
So he's T-Mac number 3? No, come on. Get out of here.
Well, apparently then go with Tetaroa. Because apparently he does not like Tet.
Tetaroa McMillan for the Cowboys.
Unless because he's on the Cowboys, you want to get him mad and you want to call him Tet.
Well, I don't want to get him mad for when he plays the Giants.
All right. Dolphins here. See, now you put me in a bad spot here. Because I was going to give the Dolphins Kelvin Banks here if he was still on the board. Because I think they could use him, and I've heard they like it. They could also use a person in the secondary. So the other person I was considering here, which ironically, and this is why this draft is so crazy, by the way, I gave them Kelvin Banks in the little mock I did, and the other player I was going to give them, I do not have him getting picked in the first round. So it was either here or off the board for this player. So I'm going to give them Malachi Starks out of Georgia.
Ooh, I thought you were going to go in a different direction there.
No, I've heard Will Johnson has a lot of injury concerns with teams.
That's who I thought you were going to go.
And I'm going to push him down the board a little bit. So I'm going to give them Malachi Starks out of Georgia.
Fair enough. Again,
remember they lost Devon Holland. Look at their depth chart at safety.
Yeah.
And corner, by the way. You're not wrong about that. Need some work.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, Colts at 14. Again, I feel like this is a dream situation for them. Pretty easy. Tyler Warren, if he's there, I do not see them passing up on him at all. I think they're going to run up to the podium immediately and submit this pick. I don't know if he's going to make it to 14, but I think the Colts would be very, very happy if he did.
And if he doesn't, I think Colston Loveland would then be the pick.
Yes,
there.
So that was my backup.
Correct.
So.
Falcons, pick your pass rusher. Is it Mike Green? Is it Shamar Stewart? Or is it James Pierce? I don't know. I'm going to give them Mike Green. Why not?
All right, next up, Cardinals. This one was a little tough for me, but I'm also going to go with edge rusher. I think they might end up choosing between the two guys. You said whoever is left. So I'm going to go Shamar Stewart.
Yep, that's who I go into them as well. And I think the Bengals also need an edge rusher. So how about the one that's left? James Pierce. And the Bengals in the past have picked guys that have had some off-the-field stuff going on. They're not the Burma Burton last year from Alabama, the wide receiver.
That didn't work out too well, at least after year one.
I didn't say it worked out. I just said they were willing to take players that have some off-the-field issues.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to go James Pierce at 17. Seahawks at 18.
Seahawks at 18. Again, I feel like they're going to be thrilled if this situation plays out. They need both wide receiver and offensive line help, and there's plenty of options at both. But given the wide receivers available, I'm going to go with Matthew Golden, Texas wide receiver here.
Tony said on our show last night he believes that they are locked in on Gray Zabel at 18.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yep.
I feel like he is a Seattle offensive lineman. Seattle or Detroit, but yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Tampa Bay, they also need pass rushers in the worst way. So I'm going to go Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
All right. Next up, Denver Broncos. Ooh, see this, I feel like they'd be faced with a little tough dilemma here because there's two guys in particular I think they would want. All the buzz seems to be that they were locked into Omari and Hampton.
I believe the buzz, to be honest.
I believe it as well, so that's what I'm going to go with. But in this situation, I think they would strongly consider Emeka Egbuka as well, but Omari and Hampton is the pick for me.
All right, I've heard he might slide down the board again, and this is Tony's reporting last night because of injury concerns, but he's there, and he's a good football player, and I think he's a good Cam Hayward replacement. Derek Harmon to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I like that.
And that's not Shedeur Sanders.
No, it is not.
That I've had my gut, I think it's 50-50 if they pick Shedeur. My gut tells me no. So I'm going to go Shedeur Sanders here. I'm going to go Derek Harmon to the Steelers over Shedeur Sanders.
Gotcha. 22, Los Angeles Chargers. They need help at a lot of positions.
But there is a Michigan player that is still available.
Colston Loveland still on the board?
Oh, yes, he is,
then
my friend.
That is the pick.
This, I think, is the dream scenario for the Chargers.
Yes, and again, I mean, I guess if Tyler Warren falls to 14, then Colston Loveland could easily drop to 22.
It all depends on where Warren goes. And, by the way,
because the Colts are going to, I think the Colts are taking one of the two.
And some people think Loveland might go ahead of Warren. That wouldn't shock me. To me, they're like touching on my board. So
I'd be a little surprised. Not shocked, but a little bit.
All right, so now let's get to the Packers here at 23. This is where I think Will Johnson comes off the board. They need a corner. There's rumors they might want to trade Jair Alexander, so I'm going to give them Will Johnson.
Okay, and it's a good pick. Next up, Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, wait, hold on. You're getting a call, Vikings. The Cleveland Browns want to trade you a couple of picks to move up to select Shedeur Sanders.
I was just about to say, the Minnesota Vikings will certainly be using the entire time slot, hoping that someone calls looking to trade up.
Ring,
so, yes, what are you offering?
Well, I don't have
Whatever you're
Bengals,
offering,
yes.
I'm accepting. 'Cause
Okay.
I only have 4 picks in this draft. And I
Correct.
need more picks.
And I think this is a realistic situation
Yes,
where
I
the
agree.
Browns want to make sure they get their guy. And you know what? Maybe it's not going to be Shador. I don't know the answer to that, but let's just go with chalk here and say it's going to be Shador here at pick number 24. Houston Texans at 25. I had at one point Josh Connerly in the top 15 of my mock draft. I considered giving him to the Miami Dolphins even at pick number 13, and even considered him at the Bears at pick number 10. But I'm going to give him to the Texans here at pick 25. They need a Laramie Tunsil replacement at left tackle, and Josh Connerly is the guy for that.
All right. I like it. Next up, we have the Rams. See, this is a guy, again, I didn't even write down because I didn't think he would be here available for the Rams at 26. I'm going to go with Jihad Campbell. They need some help at linebacker.
Can I throw one other name at you?
Yeah.
Would they consider Emeka Egbuka here? He's a very McVay-ish wide
I think
receiver.
for sure that they would consider him because they obviously lost Cooper Kupp. They have Puka Nacua, but that is not enough.
And Egbuka's a blocker, too. Like, he does all those little things McVay wants his receivers to do.
Yeah, and wide receiver certainly is a need, so I wouldn't be surprised for them if they went Egbuka. I'm going to stick with Jihad Campbell.
He's a good player. Absolutely. And that's another guy that, again, on our WFN show, which you can find on the Giants Huddle feed, right, Pearson? And I think we'd have Matt, when the show's over, put it up on the Media Pass feed as well. It's already up on the Media Pass feed? Oh, even better. So it's up on both feeds if you want to go check out the show last night. That's another guy, his shoulder. Apparently that's had some issues for teams around the league.
I did see someone, Schefter maybe, tweet about it yesterday.
So if you, again, that's one of the guys, him.
That's assuming medical clears, obviously.
Obviously, of course. But I'm just saying, for fans, for players that you have to watch to maybe slide due to injury concerns, you're looking at Harmon, Will Johnson, and Campbell, if what Tony Pauline told us, again, on FAN last night, is accurate. Good pick there. All right, let's go Baltimore Ravens.
You're going to steal my next pick with this one.
I don't know, am I?
Oh,
Doesn't
no.
Tyler Booker feel like a Baltimore
He
Ravens
does.
pick?
Yep.
They learned a lot of gap scheme, a lot of power. They could always use help on the offensive line. He's such a good locker room guy. It just smells like a Ravens pick to me. So I'm going to give them Tyler Booker.
Yeah, he's a mauler. He just fits right into that offense.
Who'd you think I was going to pick?
The guy who I'm now going to take for the Lions.
Donovan
at
Jackson?
28. No, Gray Zabel.
Oh, he's still on the board.
Still on the board.
I forgot he was still on the board. Good call.
I think they would. Dan Campbell, I feel like will be doing backflips if he can land Gray Zabel.
Now, honestly, I probably would have given Zabel to the Ravens if he was on the board.
That's why I thought you were going to take him.
And then you might have taken Booker for the Lions.
I probably would have.
So either way, those two guys off the board back to back. I forgot that we had not taken Zabel earlier, but either way, all good. All right, Washington Commanders. I think they would be seriously looking to trade down here.
That's a team. If the Giants are looking to move up and they're not looking to go into the 18 or 20 range, I've just seen reports about the Giants and Commanders being in communication about that being a potential move-up spot for the Giants.
And I don't think them being in the same division would impact that. It helps both teams.
No,
That to me is not a factor.
I'm pretty sure either Adam Peters or maybe it was a Commander source literally said we would have no issue whatsoever trading with any other team in the NFC East if it's a deal that we feel benefits us.
So I'm going to give them, since we're not going to do a trade here, because I think now that those two guys are gone, I don't think the Giants worry about another team jumping them for a quarterback. So I'm going to, though I suppose.
The Saints could.
Well, I guess they could. I'm going to stick and pick. I'm going to let the Commanders, they're going to take Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky. There's too much noise of him becoming a first-round pick for me not to slide him in here somewhere. So I'm going to give them Hairston.
I like it. That's one of the guys I was considering for this next pick with Buffalo. But since he's gone, I'm going to go with I get Will Johnson is still on the board.
No, I picked him to the Packers.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Johnny Barron is still on the board.
Johnny Barron, Amos.
Yep.
Amos.
Like the cookies.
Like the cookies.
Yes.
I got to go Johnny Barron.
Yep.
I think he's great. I think he deserves to go earlier than this. Wouldn't be surprised if he's I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 15 or 16 pick.
Yeah.
So him dropping all the way to 30, I think Buffalo would be very happy with that.
He was one of the players that I considered to the Dolphins at 13 with Starks. So he was right in that same conversation. Kansas City Chiefs need a tackle. Josh Simmons is the last one left. Again, an injury guy. Keep an eye on that, how teams view that patella tendon injury. There are some rumors of off-the-field stuff, too, with maturity issues. He's a young guy. I mean, some guys don't mature until they're a little bit older. So, again, that's the noise out there, but he's way too talented to let him get by the Chiefs, who are just desperate for a left tackle for Patrick Mahomes. So they're going to pick Josh Simmons out of Ohio State.
It's a good pick. Then we have the Eagles to round out the first round, 32. I feel like just like every other year, they would like to take someone up front.
Ooh, Kenneth Grant's still on the board.
Oh my God, if he ends up there, God help us. Please don't do that. That is a very, very Philly pick right there.
Oh, would it be?
Honestly, I think that's what they would go in this situation. If he's there at 32, they're just going to continue beefing up the trenches because he keeps working.
You would just rotate him and Jordan Davis,
yeah,
right?
They
Maybe
lost,
play half the snaps.
They lost Milton Williams. They lost Josh Sweat. So I do think an edge rusher, they did sign Azeez Ojulari, obviously, but I think an edge rusher could be in the mix. But all of the, I think, first-round worthy edge rushers have been taken in this exercise. I think safety is in the mix.
Nick Scorton, maybe? Could he be a possibility here?
Maybe. I feel like he's more of a early-ish second-round pick.
Emin still on the board, to your point.
If you wanted to go safety, I think it would be Emin. But in this situation, I think they're just going to continue beefing up front and Kenneth Grant. And that would very much scare me.
Grant to the Eagles and Teteroa McMillan to the Cowboys is not a great result here for the Giants.
The Giants,
no, draft. No,
it really is not.
It is not. All right, I want to get to your calls here. 201-939-4513.
Well, we got to do the next
201-939. Oh, yeah, I guess we don't do the last two picks, right? All right,
now
so
you got the Vikings who traded up.
The Vikings who traded up. I did not do this off the top of my head. So let's say the Vikings select... what are their needs here? Edge, cornerback. I'll give them Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M.
I think Trey Amos could also be in the mix there.
Agreed.
And then finally, we have the New York Giants picking at 34. In this situation, with everyone that is currently on the board, do you go Jackson Dart?
Donovan Jackson's still on the board.
Do you go Donovan Jackson?
Cadillac Williams is still on the board.
See, me, I would love one of those two linemen. Beef up the trenches one way or the other. If you had Tyleik Williams and Abdul Carter to the defensive front, the guys that you already have,
it's pretty good.
That is a unit that's going to be up there with the best in the league. And
for a long time, by the way.
For a long time. All those guys are young or under contract for, the minimum? I guess Kayvon, who if the fifth-year option's picked up, is still under contract for 2 more years.
To me, it's one of those two guys. I'll throw Darius Alexander into the mix, and then the quarterback. Those would be your options here, I think.
Again, oh boy. In this situation, I think it would be a little more likely to take Jackson Dart than moving up for him. But at the same time, if you feel that good about him, don't risk him dropping to 34. Then you do move up if you have conviction that he can be your long-term franchise quarterback.
Citak,
you move up to the end of the first round and take him.
You got to follow your gut. You got to follow your gut, dude. You got to follow your gut.
My gut says
listen to the little man.
My gut says they do not take Jackson Dart in this situation.
The little man knows all.
So I'm going to go with Donovan Jackson.
Okay.
Beef up your defensive line and offensive line with your first 2 picks. The Eagles formula works for them. Donovan Jackson.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I think if I was to pick a player, I think I would pick Donovan Jackson in that situation as well. But now you're moving him from... Now the question, I think the interesting thing, if you get Jackson... Would you put him at left guard because that's where he played in college and move Runyon to right guard because he's played there a lot in the NFL, so you don't have to move Jackson to a side I don't think he's played on the right side yet. I'll double check it on PFF right now, but I don't think he has. That I'll be curious to see how they handle that part of it.
Well, in that situation, you have Donovan Jackson who's proven he can sort of play almost anywhere on the line. I wouldn't say center, but tackle, guard. He's shown that he can play.
Has he played on the right side, though?
I don't know.
I'm checking that right now. Let me look.
But all of a sudden, you have pretty good depth on the offensive line now. Because between Donovan Jackson, Greg Van Roten, one of them is going to be a backup, assuming everyone stays healthy to the start of the season. That is the type of depth that, we, as Giants fans, we've been clamoring for years up front. I think that would be, obviously, put the Giants in a very good situation. Then you have a lot of depth on both the offensive and defensive line, which has been issues in years past. Sign me up for that.
He played 69 snaps on the right side in 2021. That's it.
Okay.
So basically much one game on the right side in his first year at Ohio State.
Obviously, you'd feel better with him lining up on the left side.
And Runyon's played the right a ton, so it's not like he hasn't played the right a ton. So you could make them move.
I was going to say, would you start him?
Well, that's true, too. Or do you leave your starting lineup and you let him develop into somebody? That's also the question. Does he start right away? Good point, Pearson.
Yeah.
So, but I think that'll be
I think that would be a good situation to be in.
A good problem to have.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very
100%.
good problem.
All right. I was going to let Citak, pick apart my big board a little bit, and we'll do that later on in the show. But I want to. We actually got through that mock draft in like 15 minutes. That was pretty good.
Not quite the 8 that
no, I tried, but I think we had some fun debate along the way though, which was good. All right, so let's get to your calls at 201-939-4513. And by the way, thanks for joining us on YouTube. We'll be streaming on YouTube Live the rest of the way here for all of our Big Blue Kickoff lives. And of course, stay tuned to our coverage tonight. We are going to come on live after every one of the Giants picks today and tomorrow. Right now, just one pick tonight, but maybe there could be a second one. And if it's at the very end of the round, we'll come on at the end of the draft. It's like in the middle of the round. That'll be a game time decision. Just go to the app and the website, and we'll figure out what we're going to do. Tomorrow night, after every pick, and then Saturday at 11:30, we'll be streaming live on all of our platforms. Make sure you check it out, and Big Blue Kickoff Live will be back tomorrow at 12:30. Make sure you check all that content out. And if you have some time to kill this afternoon, we still have great episodes on draft season and the Giants Huddle podcast on the Giants app, giants.com/podcast. Phil Simms went up yesterday. That's the new one on the Giants Huddle. We go through all the quarterbacks that we talked about today. I don't even ask about Cam Ward, but he still gushes about Cam Ward on his own volition anyway. But we do a lot on Shador, a lot on Locke, and he has some good points on the Ole Miss offense that Pierce and I had not heard before that I thought was really good. Some Jalen Milroe and some Tyler Shook in there. So good stuff from Phil Simms. Make sure you go check that out. I think he touched on one or two quarterbacks later on in the draft too. I was going to wrap it up. He's like, no, I want to talk about these guys too. And then he just went because that's what Phil is. He's the best. We love Phil. So check that out in the Giants Huddle podcast. Just search for it on your favorite podcast platform. All right, 201-939-4513. And, of course, draft season with Tony Pauline. That as well. That's on the draft season feed, also on the Giants Huddle feed. And, again, our live show on WFAN from last night can be found on the podcast network feed and on the Giants Media Pass feed. And we'll be live again on FAN recapping the draft. The Tino, myself, and Tony Pauline, Sunday from 8 to 10. All right, let's go to Eddie in Charlotte. We're going to lead off with him on line 3 there, Pearson. Eddie, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want your expert opinion because I'm a little confused why the Giants would take a quarterback high. They need players that can help them this year, that can play right away, not somebody that's going to sit on the bench.
What do you mean by high, Eddie? I want to just make sure I understand what you mean by picked high. What would you consider high?
I would look the first 5 picks.
Oh, okay. So even middle rounds. I got you. Okay.
Because they signed Tommy DeVito. I think they gave him $1 million.
Yeah, it's like the exclusive rights.
I mean, it's basically
tender,
the league minimum.
And it's a non-guaranteed contract, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, why would they do that if they were thinking about getting rid of him? You've got 2 other quarterbacks on the roster. No team carries 4 quarterbacks on the 53.
Eddie, I want to pause you right now. Tommy DeVito's presence on the roster is not going to impact the Giants' decision to draft a quarterback.
Okay.
It's not.
And when they brought him back, I don't know if they thought that it was a realistic option to bring both Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston both into the fold under reasonable contracts.
They had to make that decision on Tommy before those guys were in the building. Excellent point, Matt.
Okay, I just figured because they signed him, they were thinking about keeping him, but you answered the question because, like I said, no team carries 4 quarterbacks on the 53.
No,
you're right about that.
That's correct. Yes, that is absolutely correct.
And I think if you put Tommy on the practice squad, somebody would pick him up.
It's possible.
So, I mean, the only way, if they don't keep DeVito, that's one thing. But, again, you're going to have 4 quarterbacks. Where are they? Are they going to keep all 4 on the 53?
No, they wouldn't, Eddie. I guess my question for you, the reason, I'll give you my answer to your question, rather. The reason they would select the quarterback high is because they want somebody on the roster that they feel good about could be a starter next year and play at a high level. That's why they would pick a quarterback in the first 2 or 3 rounds in this year's draft.
And who would they get rid of because you can't keep 4 on the 53?
Well, I mean, I think it would probably be Tommy DeVito, just given the contract situation and guaranteed money and stuff like that.
Well, I would say that is a situation that you don't really need to make a final decision on until the end of training camp.
Yeah, knocking on wood, who knows? Someone gets hurt between now and then. You might need Tommy DeVito. A lot of teams carry 4 quarterbacks in the offseason. That's common.
In training camp, I would sort of expect there to be 4 quarterbacks. You just need bodies out there. So I think.
Well, one would be on the practice squad, though.
But that's not a decision that has to be made until the end of training camp. There's no practice squad until cutdown day, which is right at the end of training camp. So you could carry, Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Tommy DeVito, and a rookie that you drafted. See, if someone gets hurt, maybe someone's quarterback in the NFL, someone else's quarterback gets hurt, and all of a sudden they want a veteran and come calling saying, we'll offer you, pick X for Jameis or whatever for Tommy. Then all of a sudden you can unload one of those guys, get a little bit of draft capital, and then your quarterback situation is figured out. So again, it's a good situation to have if you have 4 capable quarterbacks on your roster.
Good job. The only thing I said was I think they need to pick somebody that can help them and play this year, and not somebody that can sit on the bench.
No, and
that's a fair point.
That is a fair point, and appreciate the call. That's the debate, right? Do you want to pick a guy that's going to give you more this year, or a guy that's going to help you down the road? Or do you pick a guy like Jalen Milroe who can develop down the road and still help you as an offensive weapon this year as a guy that can make some explosive plays? So those are the different avenues you could take when you have that debate. But Eddie, you make a good point. That, I think, is what the conversation is when you talk about what you want to do with that 34th pick.
Yeah. Eddie, we literally just had that exact conversation. And I was the one picking for the Giants at 34, and I did not go a quarterback because I agree. I think if you can add someone like Donovan Jackson or a defensive tackle that can help you right away and also be a part of the future, I slightly lean towards that way. But I don't think any of us would be surprised at all if a quarterback is the pick at 34. Given the long-term outlook at the quarterback position for the Giants, I don't think it would be a surprise in the slightest.
All right, let's go to Brandon in New Jersey. He's up next. Hey, Brandon.
How's it going, fellas?
What's up?
Hey, John, I hit you up on X, and I wanted to have some pushback on the quarterback, and more or less about how you guys were looking at the quarterbacks and even how they scout them. But I don't think we have time for that today. So I just want to.
No, that's okay, Brandon. What do you want to push back on? Just make it quick.
First, let me ask you. I want to ask you 2 questions to start. Number 1, what do you think is a necessary attribute in a quarterback, and it could be more than one, in a quarterback in order to at least get to the Super Bowl? They may not be able to win it, but get to the Super Bowl. You need a whole team to win the Super Bowl, but at least.
Well, you also need a whole team to get to the Super Bowl, Brandon. Just for the record.
True.
There isn't one attribute.
Game,
There isn't one attribute. For a quarterback, there's 6 attributes.
Well, I'm just trying to get what you guys see as the most important out of all of that possible attributes. What are the most important is really where I'm at.
I would say being able to slow the game down, see the field, consistently make good decisions, and make explosive plays. That would be, I guess, the thing I would give to you. And in order to do those things, I think you need to have a level of mobility for the most part. You need to have a level of arm strength to make the throws you have to make down the field. But I think, and this is why, by the way, Brandon, scouting quarterbacks is so difficult and so many teams get it wrong, is that a lot of the most important things that allows a quarterback to be successful are the things that I do not believe I am qualified enough to see on tape, like processing, seeing things before they happen. I think you can see anticipation a little bit, which is also important. But things like processing and decision making, as someone that doesn't know what he's being taught by the coach in college, I think figuring that out from our perspective is extremely difficult, and you're not going to know that until you get him in a one-on-one, get him in front of video, getting him in front of a board. And then you throw in the intangible stuff, right? Like, does he lead a locker room? Are the guys going to follow him? Does his teammates believe in him? You have that part of it too. So there are a million things that make the quarterback position and players that play that position successful. Some things that we can see and figure out, and some things that we can't see and can't figure out. But I do think it's very difficult for a quarterback now without at least above average tools in terms of especially movement ability to be a top 5, top 7 Super Bowl caliber NFL quarterback. I think it's very difficult. You have to be exceptional at a lot of other things. Is that fair?
All right.
Yeah.
I think it's fair. Matt, did you have anything on that? Yeah.
No, I think John covered it. You got another question for us?
No. Well, I was going to say is I think that for me, I think there's a baseline of arm strength you need to make a 20-yard out pass. If you can make that pass, I think there's a baseline level to there. And then after that, the only 2 attributes I think that are most important in a quarterback, you can look at all the Super Bowl quarterbacks. They all possess these 2. Well, yeah, they all possess these 2 attributes. They all have different games, but they're all accurate, and they all had a clutch gene. Even to Nick Foles, he was 26-2. Although we would not consider him a clutch quarterback, he was 26-2 that year, and he was very clutch the entirety of why he was on the field that particular year. And when right now, my biggest thing is, like, people are like, oh, Jackson Dart. But I went back and I looked at Ole Miss's film, and I threw out all their blowouts because that doesn't give you,
No, and look,
like,
Brandon, we talked about it on our shows. Like, Jackson Dart has some bad moments at the end of some big games this year. That's absolutely true. No
It's not
argument.
just the end. It's not just the end of the game, though. It's also Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, Bill Belichick. There are other, besides the end of the game, the end of the half as well. So for me, when I was for my evaluation, I'm a guy at home. But for my evaluations, when I was going through looking at all the quarterbacks that I thought was potential quarterbacks for the Giants, I just really went to the one-score games, then went to the 2-minute warning. And I want to see how you played after the 2-minute warning, at the half and at the end of the game. And Jackson Dart disappeared every single time. There was nothing going on at all. If they weren't running the ball, they were giving it back to the other team. And all their one-score games, if it ended a one-score game and they won, is because they were at some point up 3 scores.
Fair enough.
And if they ended and they lost, is because they did not. They might have been winning most of the fourth quarter. They just did nothing from the 2-minute warning on. It just keep giving the ball back. To me, I don't think you could teach clutch, but I think that's the only way to really be able to, like, make it tangible is if you just start at games there and then continue on that way. And then my last thing was about John had made some points about why he wouldn't draft Shedeur high, and it was because you were saying you weren't sure that Shedeur would make it up into the upper echelon of quarterbacks in the league, and you weren't sure about drafting a guy in the first round that ultimately becomes the 11th or the 12th best quarterback in the league.
Well, remember, the Giants aren't just picking in the first round, they're picking it 3rd overall.
Okay.
So 3rd overall is different than first round. Like, picking 17th is a lot different than picking 3rd.
Okay, so you were just saying because you were so high in the first round.
Well, yeah, that's what that's where the Giants are picking
in the middle of the round, and Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter were not realistic options. That I feel like I would obviously change the equation.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, because that part threw me for a loop a little bit because I was confused on, like, when you planned on drafting a quarterback ever then. Because when my
Brandon, you've listened to this show. You know how much I value the quarterback position. Come on, man. I'm not the Tito.
You were on with Paul that day. It was tough to, you know what I mean? It was tough to kind of. But my point was still, like, it's not that you're drafting a quarterback. Like, your example in that conversation was Tua. You're saying you would not draft Tua that high because Tua ultimately became the 13th, 14th, 15th best quarterback in the league, right?
I would not pick him 3rd overall in the draft, no.
Right. But the problem is, where was Tua drafted?
5th.
Right. And that's my point.
But you couldn't get Tua anywhere else. That's my point. There was no other options to get. There wasn't like Tua could fall through the draft or
Brandon,
you could find him in the second round.
Brandon, they picked him a pick before Justin Herbert.
So you said, I don't think Justin Herbert is clutch either, and I don't.
Oh, I would take Justin Herbert at 5th. I would pick if Justin Herbert was in this draft, I would pick him at 3rd overall, and I'd run to the podium with 100. My clothes off. I'd be so excited about it.
My clothes would remain on, but I would also be running to the podium to take Herbert.
I'm sorry. What has he showed you about his clutch where you think he can actually make it to a Super? But back to my first, I don't think Justin Herbert's ever going to make it to a Super Bowl. And it's because when his team needs him the most, it's the thing I used to tell you about Daniel Jones, when the stadium is super quiet, but it's super loud at the exact same time. In those moments, how do you perform? We have seen year over year, Justin Herbert is no different than Phil Rivers. No different.
You don't like Phillip Rivers? He's a Hall of Famer.
His career is over, so he ultimately is one of the biggest choke artist quarterbacks ever.
Oh, Brandon, I got to disagree with you there. I think our basic disagreement here, and appreciate the call, I don't buy your clutch gene thing.
No, I went back and looked. Patrick Mahomes, when he was at Texas Tech, had a 13-16 record as the starting quarterback. Is he not clutch? Just because he didn't win in college, that automatically means that you can't be clutch and have success in the NFL?
Jalen Hurts had to get yanked out of a national championship game.
Yeah.
Is he clutch?
Yeah.
Turned out to be pretty clutch in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Brandon, that's where I think we disagree. And I think you made some good points. Excellent call. I think you brought a very good perspective.
Yeah, it's just the clutch thing. That something that
I'm more interested
can also develop.
I believe that if you have a large body of work that shows you a player can do something, it will eventually show up in big moments. That's how I look at it, right? If somebody shows you they can do it, eventually it'll show up in the big moment. He's going to do it in the big moment. That's what I believe. You don't believe that, and that's fine. We can have different perspectives on that. That's okay. And there are other people that look at it your way too, and I totally get where you're coming from on it. But if I see over like Phillip Rivers, man, that guy was, Pedro Serrano in, Major League 2. I don't want to be, you guys get the reference if you watch Major League 2. That guy, I would have no fear of Phillip. The guy played on a torn ACL in a playoff game, for God's sakes. Give me a break. Come on. Phillip Rivers, he's awesome. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. 100%.
At least I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Might take a little while, but he'll get there.
I agree. Anyway. But, Brandon, I like your perspective. Good call. Anything you want to add to that?
No. The clutch thing was the one thing I wanted to just touch on, too. And I feel like we touched on it. So.
And look, and we've seen some of these players, is Shedeur Sanders clutch? He had some comeback wins for them, but he also, in some bigger games against better teams, didn't play well. So is he clutch? Is he not? I don't know. Jalen Milroe played great against Georgia, but then not as good in the second half. Well, was he clutch or is he not clutch? Does the game against, oh boy, who was the game he played late in the year against an SEC team where he was just awful?
Vandy?
Was he awful against Vandy?
I don't know.
You would know better than me.
I only remember Vandy winning, so.
He probably wasn't very good. There was a game at the very end of the year. Look up Alabama's schedule for me. There was a game at the end of the year that Alabama played where he was really, really poor. But it wasn't a great team that they played. So, does that mean he's not clutch? Does not playing well against the bad team matter? You know what I mean? So I don't know if I buy that. Oklahoma. He was
24-3 loss.
He was terrible against Oklahoma. And Oklahoma wasn't very good this year at all. They were barely over 500 in the SEC, right? If I recall. So is that clutch? That's not. I can't get wrapped into the clutch thing. I can't. Sorry. We just look at it differently, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, let's go to Tim in Charleston. He's up next. Hey, Tim.
Hey, John. Hey, Matt. How you doing?
What's going on? What's up, Tim?
So, I got a scenario that I want to go over with you because it's a little concerning in my mind. The worst case scenario at the end.
All right, let's hear it.
A couple of things in here that are assumptions is that, number one, we get Carter third, and number two, that Shedeur gets picked by the Steelers at 20.
And Tim, by the way, and Tim, really quick, I'm so sorry for interrupting, then you can finish. To Brandon's point, if the Giants do believe a quarterback is that guy, they should absolutely pick him at 3. Whether we see that quarterback that way doesn't matter. If the Giants see the quarterback way, they absolutely should. That's all I'm saying.
There's no one who I think should go at 3.
Right.
But
go ahead.
I'm just on those. Because if it got flipped around like if Cleveland took Carter and we end up taking Hunter, that changes how we think might be taking a little bit 34 because of some of our other needs. But that let's put that out because I don't want that's not part of the hypothetical.
Yeah, of course. Right, so go ahead. Yep.
So here's my thing. So there are 3 teams in the front end of the second round that might be interested in quarterbacks: Cleveland, us, and the Saints. So now, if Shedeur goes to Pittsburgh at 21, okay, now Cleveland's right in front of us, so that's a worry if we stick and pick.
Yep.
They're right ahead of us.
Correct.
But the Saints, who have the 7th pick in the second round, picks 40, or the 8th pick, whatever that is, they also have 2 third-round picks and 2 fourth-round picks. So and the rumors, supposedly they might be interested in Dart as well. So the other hypothetical in this is, let's say the Giants are 1A and 1B, for lack of a better term, are Jackson, Dart, and Shuck, right?
Okay.
So they're willing they'd be okay with either of them. Let's just go on that. We have no idea, but let's just go on that. So now, if the Saints are looking to trade up, say, with Minnesota to take Jackson, Dart, and we were looking to trade up to get Jackson, Dart, there might be a competition there, and it might get a little pricey if they're willing to throw in a 3 and a 4 along with their 2.
No,
I don't
that's
care
true.
what the charts is anyone says. So So that's a concern for me, right?
And by the
Now,
way, Tim, it
let's
might
say-
not just be the Saints. Like, is there any guarantee the Raiders aren't looking for like Jalen
I
Milroe,
was
or the
thinking the same
Jets looking for someone to go with Justin Fields? I think it could be more than just the Saints. But your point stands.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay, but yeah. So then, if Dart were to go, probably anyone trading up in there, I'm taking Milroe out of the picture after what Phil Simms said last night for now. But anyway, so then Cleveland in front of us. Here's the nightmare scenario. They take Shuck, and now we're sitting there with my bucket's got a hole in it. I can't get no beer kind of scenario, to quote an old Hank Williams song. But so my concern is, I'm thinking that there is a good chance that the Giants do trade up into the end of the first round to get Dart, or if they don't want to go that high, if they don't want to do it that much capital, that they at least try to get up in front of Cleveland if they do want one of those two guys. And I wanted to kind of get your feedback on that. And just because you quoted this earlier, I'm 75-25 that we take a quarterback if one of those two guys is available at 34. I'm 75-25. So what do you think about that?
Well, to start, if you're saying the absolute nightmare scenario for the Giants in at least the first 2 days of the draft is you get Abdul Carter and then you come on the clock at 34 and Jalen Milroe is still there, if that's the worst case scenario, like, I'm okay with that.
Or if
I don't think that's that bad of a scenario, to
Or
be honest.
4 quarterbacks go ahead of you, and then one
someone
of
else
these really good offensive linemen or
Exactly.
defensive tackles gets pushed to you. That's fine too.
If that's the worst case scenario,
Correct.
then sign me up for that. Like, that's not. I don't think it's that bad. Like, I
don't think anything that could happen at 34 that's realistic, Matt, is that bad.
I agree.
That's why I'm not stressed about it. I'm kind of excited about it. I just want to know what they do, because I think whatever they do has a really good chance of working out for the team.
That's part of the reason why I personally would rather not trade up, because I
agree
feel
with
like of these quarterbacks we're talking about, including Milroe, at least one of them will be there at 34. We have no idea how the Giants rank these quarterbacks. They went through all these private workouts last week. We don't know what came out of that. But if you have them similarly ranked, I think you stay at 34. If you really want a quarterback, take the one that's there. Again, only if you have them similarly ranked, and keep your 2 third-round picks and that early 4th-round pick and continue adding to the depth of this team. I mean, the Giants front office crushed it with the draft class last year. If you could bring in another draft class this year that has the similar sort of impact, I think this team could take a big jump this year. So I understand the desire from a lot of people to take a quarterback. But again, I've said this, I'll keep saying it. Unless you have a quarterback that you feel with full conviction can be your starting quarterback, you don't force the pick. You don't take a quarterback just to take one. If one is high up on your board, by all means, you do it, and you don't think twice about it.
Correct.
But you don't take one just to simply take one.
Yeah, and look, as I've said a million times on these shows, and I'll say it again for the folks that might be joining us for the first time, our ability to evaluate quarterbacks is just not complete, because we don't get all the other access to these players that the teams get, and the coaches and the GMs, so they're going to know a lot better on these players. If the Giants have one of these quarterbacks because of all that access available to them, and they believe that they have a chance to be a top 10, top 8 type of quarterback, you go and find a way to get that player. That's what you do. What I think about it doesn't make any difference. What Matt thinks about it doesn't make any difference. If that's a 3, that's great. If it's a trade up, that's great. That's what you do. That's what you go and you do. And they're going to know better than we are.
What about what I think about?
What Pearson thinks
That
matters.
matters.
Yeah.
That matters.
Well, that
Thank
matters the
you.
most.
Thank
Correct.
you, Matt.
That matters the most. So that's what, guys, so just remember that as we move forward here. And I think if you listen back to that Todd McShay episode where he kind of broke down the whole thing with Dable and Dart and all that stuff, and I've heard this from other people around the league too, the amount of respect that people around the league have for Brian Dable and his ability to evaluate and develop quarterbacks is immense. I know there's a group of Giant fans that are like, oh, Josh Allen would have become good anyway, all that stuff. And fine, you can think that. But if you talk to people that are in the league and know this stuff, they all have an immense amount of respect for Brian Dable and what he knows about quarterbacks and how he develops them.
Yeah, I mean, you only got to go back to last year. This time, 1 year ago, when the Giants, we all, saw Hard Knocks. The Giants were trying very hard to move up to number 3 to take Drake May, to trade with the Patriots. And there were reports from, I want to say it was like Ian Rappaport, one of the very, plugged in, reputable national reporters that said a big reason why New England doesn't want to trade down from 3 to pass on Drake May is because they trust Brian Dable's evaluation. And if Brian Dable wants this guy so badly, then he must be good. And that was a reason, part of the reason, not the reason, a part of the reason, according to this report, why New England wanted to stay at 3 and take Drake May last year.
Right.
So I agree with you completely. If Brian Dable, after all of these quarterback evaluations, the last, let's just call it 3.5 months, even though they've been going on for well before that as well.
But Dable probably hasn't started on the guys until the last 3.5 months.
Until the season ended.
Correct.
For sure. If Dable came out of these last 3.5 months and says, I think I can win with Jackson Dart, or I think I can win with Shador.
At a high level.
Or Tyler Shook, Jalen Miller, whoever it is, if he feels that way, then you go get the guy.
Correct.
Do whatever it takes. You go and get the guy. You don't think twice. You trade up. You give up whatever picks, whether it's on later in day 2, whether it's next year. You do it. If Brian Dable and the front office, if they all have conviction about one of these quarterbacks, you make the move and you don't think twice about it.
100%. All right, let's go to Jay in Orlando, and then Raheem in the Bronx will wrap us up. Jay, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Just 2 quick things. First one, I want to say I'm excited about Jackson Dart. I think if that's the move, if that's what, Dable believes in, I think, he obviously has the opportunity. And we haven't seen him work with a quarterback that he chose and he believed in, while he was with the Giants.
And Jay, just be careful too. This could be like the Giants leaking out that they like Dart, so another team trades in front of them to get Dart, and then the guy they really like gets to them. So I honestly don't know which quarterback it's going to be. I know all the noise is Dart, but it's just reports, and they're not heavily sourced reports from all the guys that have had it. So I would just be careful about focusing in on one of those 4 guys. It could be any one of them.
For sure, and I might be heartbroken at the end of the night because like I said, I'm all in on Jackson Dart. Yep. I think he has the star potential, but we'll see. And then another thing, I saw a post earlier today on X, and it was Cam Ward walking around Green Bay, and he was talking about how it was cold and stuff like that, and he kind of mentioned potentially going to Tennessee, but he also said probably Nashville, probably New York. And I thought that was a little strange. So I don't know if you guys heard it, but I wanted to know what your opinion was on that.
I did not.
I did not see that. But what I do know is I think it was just 2 days ago, 48 hours ago, that maybe Monday, the Titans GM in front of the media said, we have decided we are staying at number 1 and we are not trading down. So that being the case, I feel like all sides certainly point towards Cam Ward going down to Nashville.
And there were a million reports out there, and these I lend a little more credence to, that the Giants were interested in trading up.
Yes, but again, it takes 2 to tango.
It takes 2 to tango, exactly, which we've been down that road before, sadly. All right, we'll wrap things up with Raheem in the Bronx. Raheem, what's going on, dude?
Hey, I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're good, man. What do you have for us today?
It's finally here, guys. To me, the most agonizing part of the offseason is finally over. Looking forward to tonight, but I just have one question. I'll take it off here.
Sure.
I waited to have you on because I wanted to ask you, John, specifically. You've mentioned before that if you were to combine this year's draft class and last year's, that you would have Cam Ward probably 4th.
Yes, I would have him ahead of J.J. McCarthy, but after Williams, May, and Daniels.
Yeah. So I agree with Williams and Daniels, but I just wanted to know what's the difference between May. Like, what did you see in May that you haven't over Ward? Because if I remember correctly, he didn't really have the best last year before he came out.
That is true.
So,
no, he didn't.
This was Cam Ward's best year in college. So I just wanted to know what the difference is. What do you see? I'll take it off here. Thanks,
Raheem,
guys.
excellent question.
Thanks, Raheem.
May was a little bit younger, for one. And again, I'm not worried about age with quarterbacks, but I think, he was dominant the year before May, and then he was still pretty good in his last year. Ward has just had 1 year. Ward held the ball a lot longer than May did, and I wonder how that's going to play in the National Football League. May, frankly, had a pretty bad offensive line in front of him, and he was under duress for a lot of the year. Ward was probably a little bit more accurate than May was, more consistently. I agree with that. I think they both had similar arms. May, believe it or not, might actually be a better athlete than Cam Ward is. If you watch him run, like if they ran in a race, I think
He's a great athlete.
I think Drake May's winning that race.
Well,
People
they
don't
both
realize.
are. They both are very good
Yes.
athletes.
I mean, Drake May, hold on. Let me see if I can bring this up very quickly. I believe Drake May was like 3rd in quarterback rushing last year. And that was the fact that that was even after he only started, 7 games? What did Drake May finish in rushing? He finished with 9. He finished 9th with 421 rushing yards. But that was in like 4 or 5 fewer games than a lot of the other quarterbacks played. So you give him a few more games, he's probably 2nd or 3rd in the league in rushing at the quarterback position.
I do think at least some of that, though, was because of how bad the Patriots' offensive line was last year, and he was running for his life a lot of the time.
But the fact that he had the escapability to do that was, I think, impressive. And he created time and that sort of stuff.
Cam Ward definitely has that escapability as well. I mean,
I agree with
I don't want to compare anyone to Patrick Mahomes, but there are highlights of Cam Ward from Miami where you're like, that kind of looks like Patrick Mahomes-esque out there.
And I think I saw Drake May make more small window passes in traffic than Ward did. Ward was more often hitting guys that had a lot of space around, and I thought May was a little bit better at that. Now,
that's fair. I agree with you that I would have Cam Ward right below Drake May.
And I'll say this too.
4th, combining the last 2 classes.
And Matt and I will disagree on this. I had May ahead of Daniels last year. He had Daniels ahead of May.
I had Daniels. I was saying last November.
No, I know you did.
About how much I wanted Jaden Daniels, or 2 Novembers ago at this point. Banging the table saying the Giants need to get Jaden Daniels, and then obviously that did not work out.
And I will just warn people, do not only go off what happens in 1 year either. And, we'll see how these guys develop and where they go moving forward. But, no, it's a good question. Because I do think that's why I think I would put May. I'd have to go back to my notes on May. I don't have them in front of me. But that's why I would put May slightly ahead of I would put May ahead of Ward in that. I would put Ward a little bit behind Jaden Daniels in terms of my collegiate evaluation of the two. My worries with Daniels is that he got so many of his yards, and appreciate the call, man. Thanks so much. He got so many of his yards on slot fades, and he just didn't throw over the middle a ton. He had great wide receivers. He had a great offensive line. And it just seemed like everything came so easily for him. So I was wondering what would happen when it became a little bit messier in the National Football League. And believe it or not, despite his mobility, Daniels actually took a lot of sacks at LSU. His sack-to-pressure ratio was not great. So I did wonder how well he would do in front of a commander offensive line, or just any offensive line group. You get picked at the top of the draft. Odds are you're not going to be playing behind some great offensive line because there's a reason these teams are picking at the top of the draft. And I was wondering how he would handle that. But and he didn't have an A-plus arm, Jaden Daniels. It's a good arm, but it's not an A-plus arm. Right? I think Ward probably actually has a better arm than Daniels does in terms of like power and flexibility and stuff like that. So that's why I had it the way I did, but I think I still had Daniels as a, top 10 valued player. I thought if the Giants would have drafted him, I would have been thrilled with their pick because I thought he did have high-level upside there. So that's how I had him stacked up.
Fair enough. Since we've come on, there's now apparently a lot of growing buzz that the Bears are going to trade up to number 5 with the Jaguars to take Ashton Genty.
The Jaguars would trade out of there, huh?
Well, in that situation, I feel like we would still nail the 5th and 10th draft slots with Genty going 5 and Mason Graham going 10. Just swap the teams.
I don't know. Do you think they would pick Ted McMillan at 10? Tedero McMillan, pardon me, T-Mac.
I don't know. If you're the Jaguars, you trade down to 10, pick up whatever draft capital from the Bears, and you can still come out of this draft with Mason Graham, where defensive tackle is potentially your biggest need. It's certainly up there.
There seems to be...
Sign me up for that if I'm the Jaguars.
There seems to be indications that they want a playmaker, the Jaguars.
I've seen those as well, which is why, Ashton Genty to them at 5 is widely rumored, report that's going around, but... I don't know. If I'm the Jaguars and I'm trading down to 10, picking up at least, a couple of day 2 picks? I don't know. Chicago has those 2 second-round picks. I don't know if they'd give up both to move up to 5, but even if you get one of them, you can get a wide receiver with one of those early second-round picks. And I had Mason Graham, and your team is a lot better than it was a day earlier. So,
is that a Jordan Schultz report you had right there? Is that what it was?
This was a Pro Football Talk said.
Okay.
The Bears trading up to number 5. For Ashton Genty, heats up in the betting markets, which we know that doesn't actually mean anything. It's not like Vegas is plugged into, NFL war rooms. They're just going by what is being reported. But and Warren Sharp tweeted about it. Seems to be some growing buzz. So maybe there will be some trades in the top 10 today.
Interesting. Mr. Citak, enjoy the process tonight. Have fun in the war room up there.
The other war room,
yes.
to be clear.
Yes.
It will not be in the main draft room.
The Giants' digital content war room, which is far more intense than anything going on the other side of the building. If I see any misspellings on anything, I'm coming for you.
It's
right?
all Dan Salomon.
And Paul and Datino and I will be in this little cave down here reacting to the picks as they happen. So stay tuned for all that content tonight on the Giants app, Giants.com, Giants YouTube channel, as the Giants make one or maybe more selections in the 2025 NFL Draft. Pearson, we got a bunch of phones ringing. You sure you don't want to go to 2 o'clock here? No, you sure? You want to cut it short?
Pearson needs lunch.
Okay. So do I. All right, but we have a lot of time to take your calls tonight and over the next couple of days. So get in. Happy to talk to you. Talk some Giants football. Talk some draft. That's all we have for Big Blue Kickoff today, brought to you by Cadillac, the official vehicle of the Giants. We'll be in the Hackensack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better all night tonight, getting reaction from you and telling you about whoever the Giants select in the draft and make the newest members of this organization. For Matthew Citak, I'm John Schmeelk. Hope you enjoyed the program. We'll see you tonight.